Hello, what we're going to be covering in this video is we're going to go ahead and create the application that Lesson 4.5 Table Views walks you through. So creating this video, so if you have any difficulties with creating this application, you can look back on this video and it should walk you through the various steps. What we're going to be doing is in this lesson, we're going to focus on dynamic table views. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating an application that should look similar to this. It'll be an emoji dictionary. So the first step to create this emoji dictionary, we need to go ahead and get into Xcode. So let me just go ahead and create a new Xcode project. I will click on Next. And we will call it Emoji Dictionary. And I will click on Next again, and I'll save it to my desktop. And what we're going to be using in this lesson is, instead of using a view controller, we're going to be using a UI table view controller. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go in and delete the view controller swift.swift file. So I'll just select it, click on delete, and move that to the trash. And then we need to go into our main storyboard and we need to delete our view controller scene. So I will just go ahead, go in there and click on delete to delete the view controller scene. Okay, so that's a little housekeeping work that we needed to do. So the next thing we need to do is we need to, in our MVC model, is we need to go ahead and create our model information. So what we're going to be creating is a class called emoji, and within that class we're going to have a symbols property, a name property, a description property, and a usage property. So in order to do that, let me go back into our application right here. And what I want to do is I want to go in and create a new file. So let me right click, and I want a new file, and what it's going to be a Swift file. I will click on Next, and I will update the file to emoji, and then click on Create. And what it's done is it's created that emoji.swift file. It's going to be a class of an emoji class that we're going to create. So I will just go ahead and add that information in. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video and create our model. And then after I've done creating it, we can talk about it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I created my class, my emoji class. We have a symbol, name, description, and usage, all of type string. And then I have my init for my class. Again, the init is required when you go ahead and create a class. So I've gone ahead and created that init where the symbol, name, description, and usage properties get passed in, and then a new emoji object gets created. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to go ahead and add a navigation controller to our main storyboard. So let me just go ahead and click on the main storyboard, and I will go in, and what I want to search for is navigation controller. It's right up there. So what I need to do is I just need to go ahead and drag and drop it onto my scene. So now when you drag and drop a navigation controller, it comes with a table view controller. So you do not have to add that table view controller separately. So I have my navigation controller. So what I want to do first is I want to go ahead and select my navigation controller, and I need to go into my attributes inspector, and I need to set that as my initial view controller. So I'll just go ahead and check that box. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and add a class that is going to be related to our Tableview controller that we've added in here. So what I need to do is I need to go in and add a new file. So let me just go ahead, right click. I want to add a new file, and I want to make sure it's a Cocoa Touch class, so I'll go ahead and select that. And then the subclass of, we want to make sure this is a subclass of a UI Tableview controller. So I want to make sure I have that selected. And what I'm going to name the class is just Emoji Tableview Controller. So I will go ahead and click on Create. And what it's done now is it's gone ahead and it's created my Emoji Tableview controller, and if you look in the actual class file, it has information related to the data source and some additional methods or functions that we're going to be implementing that are related to table views. So that's one nice thing about using a UI Tableview controller and not placing a table view on top of a view controller. The other nice thing about a table view controller is you get the scrolling by default. So like we did in the last lesson, you don't have to add that scroll view, and then on top of the scroll view add the table view. So the last thing we need to do is we need to go back into our main storyboard. We want to make sure that we have our table view controller selected, and then we want to associate the class we just created with it. So I will just go ahead and click on that. And then the other thing, my navigation item, I'm just going to go ahead and change that to Emoji Dictionary. And then after we've done that, we can actually go ahead and build and run our application. So I will be using an iPhone 8 simulator. I'll go ahead and start it, and while it's coming up, I'll pause the video. So as you can see, once the actual simulator, the app comes up in the simulator, you have an empty emoji directory. So let me just go ahead and stop the simulator. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and adjust the type of table cell that we're going to be using. So if I go into my table view and click on my table view cell, there's various styles that you can go ahead and select. So I'm just going to click through these styles so you can see the difference. So the first one is basic. It shows the title. Second one is a right detail cell. So it has the title and the detail on the right. Next one is left detail. So it has the title and detail more in the middle. And then finally is the subtitle. This is the actual one we're going to be using, where it has the title and the detail on top of each other. So that is the actual style that we're going to be using. So what we're going to do next is, in order to actually go ahead and use those cells, we need to go ahead and select our table view cell, and we want to go ahead and set up an identifier for that table view cell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and call it an emoji cell and just hit enter. So that way we can, when we go ahead and load up the table into the cells, we have an identifier for our table view cell. So after I've done that, what we need to do next is we need to go back into our Emoji Tableview controller. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an array, and that array will hold an array of emojis. So I will just go ahead and type in var emojis, and then we will go ahead and it's going to be an array of emojis. And then I will add the equal sign. And then now, to make things a little bit easier, we do have an array of emojis created for you. So if you go out into Canvas, if you scroll on down, I click on the emoji dictionary project. Oh, that's the wrong one. I need to go ahead and click on my emoji array sample. Let me expand the size of this. Click on to the pastable code and let me scroll over. And what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and copy in Command C. And then I will go back into my class and do a Command V. And the one update we need to make to this array is we need to change the detailed description to description. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and make those updates. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've actually gone in and updated detailed description to description, so now everything compiles correctly. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go back and we need to go in and within the Tableview protocol, basically what we have in our UI Tableview controller is we have a data source and a delegate that we can go ahead and use that'll help us write the code to go in and actually set up how our table is going to react when we go ahead and load the data into the table itself. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and work with the Tableview Datasource, and the data source adopts the UI Tableview Datasource protocol, and it's responsible for providing the necessary data to our Tableview object. So the three data source methods that we're going to be looking at are the number of sections, the number of rows in the sections, and the cell for row at. So if we go back, I just want to scroll back a little bit to talk about the index path. So in order to access a cell within a table, you would specify the index path. There may be a section, there usually is a section, and then there always is a section and a row associated with that index path. If you only have one section, then the section is always 0. And if you have multiple sections, then you would access by specifying both the section and the row. So in our case, we're going to only have one section. So what we need to do first is we need to go scroll down into our code and the number of sections. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and update that value so it returns 1. So we are only going to have one section in our table, so we can go ahead and update that to return 1. So the next thing we need to look at is we need to go ahead and we need to implement the number of rows in the section. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and delete that, and since our emojis are getting loaded up from an array, we can go ahead and use the emoji count property to go ahead and let the UI Tableview controller know exactly how many rows are going to be in that section. So let me just go ahead and enter an if statement. If section is equal to 0, then we will go ahead and return the count of our emojis array, and then else what we're going to return is a return of 0. So basically what that'll do is it'll go ahead and return the number of rows that are found in our array. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop the video right now. And this will be part one, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about part two. So let me just go ahead. I will be talking to you in a minute, walking through the rest of the lesson.